Hey guys, how's it going? Jay Sensational here. Welcome back to the channel. So here's the tier list you didn't know you needed, but this is the Seraphine biggest fan club president. Sorry, I always get the name mixed up. Tier list with the given relevance as well as popularity of Seraphine and one of her most probably the strongest cards within her package, which being fan club president, allowing you to manifest a 5-mana spell, reduces cost to 2. I present to you guys a tier list of all the 5-cost spells that are available in the fan club president's pool of cards that you can hit, and this can maybe allow you to be a little bit more cognizant about some potential randomness that can occur in your game, or just have a little bit of fun as we kind of look through the actually pretty big pool of cards that we are able to hit, because this card can manifest from any region, unlike other cards like Station Archivist. So we have access to any and all 5-mana spells within the game. So let's begin. Starting off with Detain, just a quick quick note. I probably won't talk too much about what each specific card does. That might take a little bit of a long time. Maybe I'll talk briefly about cards that maybe you guys haven't seen before, and I'll gloss over those really quickly. But we are rating these cards just based on both their immediate impact as well as their impact when they are doubled. Because what obviously the cool synergy is, if you have a leveled Seraphine and generate any of these spells, any of these 5-mana spells can be doubled up as well. So that can obviously boost a card's power level if you are able to double it. But anyways, let's begin. Starting off with Detain. it's a capture card. So in this pool, we have obviously some removal cards, we have some value cards, heal cards, generation cards, and Detain falls under these like sort of pseudo removal cards. And to me, it's definitely one of the weaker options that we have access to. I won't say it's the worst, just because if you're running like the Ionian version, you can have cards like Deny to kind of back things up. Maybe it's like just a decent way to stall out an attack if your opponent just coming down at you with some pretty big overwhelm units. But for now, I think this card is just a nice meh going into there. Next up, Catalyst of Aeons. I believe there are at least I believe there are at least 2, 3, 4 heal spells at burst speed, this being one of them, and this one being able to ramp as well. So definitely just a decent option for there, just to heal if you need against aggro, but otherwise it's just okay. It's just okay. Definitely probably higher up on the meh. You can put it up to bottom like hilariously okay, but definitely just let's put it over here. We might need to add one. Let's add one more. I need to add one more below. Add row below, and this is just like decent. And I believe that's just a very decent place to put it at. Harsh Winds. Definitely pretty strong as far as stall goes for 2 mana, being able to just completely freeze out 2 units, especially given the fact that we are in a meta dominated by either these Vayne decks or the Seraphine decks. Very good into Vayne, especially the Pantheon or the Varus decks that definitely go pretty high up there. So I'll give this a nice solid decent as well. Next up, Decisive Maneuver, a fast speed stun, mostly only relevant on defensive turns. This does have the added bonus of granting your allies +2/+0 for the round, but most Seraphine decks I've seen don't actually go wide on board very easily. The most popular version of Seraphine decks right now is the Seraphine Ezreal, and as far as this card goes, yeah, if you double it up, you get +4 across the board. It's pretty cool, but double stunning a unit versus stunning it once, not a huge difference. This card is not bad. It has a good flex spot if you are in need of a stun, but it's just kind of meh. Intimidating Roar, stun 4. Meh. Is it worse than Detain? It might be. It has like higher value when it hits, but I think overall it's just slightly worse. Now we have something interesting. Shumpo, 5 mana, deal 2 to an enemy. This can, I believe, I don't think it can go to the Nexus, but just a 2 mana rally. Again, I think the overall thing with these Seraphine decks is they mostly don't really have very good ways of generating a board unless you have something like Victor or you play some other decent units out there. The rallies aren't honestly the best way to end the game, especially if you are playing just the Ezreal version. I think there's just better ways to burst things out and just better ways of using your mana or selecting cards there. Do I value rally very much? Deal 2 doubled up deal 4, so at the very worst it's like a mystic shot with a rally attached to it. I mean, that can only be so bad, right? Pursuit of Perfection. This is a cool card. So this is able to summon you a 30/30 catastrophe with overwhelm, and of course you can double this up. Being a Seraphine deck, you actually have a decent amount of unique cards. You need at least 6 different spells to level Seraphine, and then of course Seraphine generates spells of her own. Maybe you're playing Sputtering Song Spinner, maybe you're playing other sorts of random generation. This actually gives you a decent win condition, and especially if you can double it up, it can just be absolutely fantastic. So I think this falls under the hilariously okay, where if you are able to activate it and pick it, it's just going to give you a nice solid win condition of its own. Next up, Possession. Oh man, this card always feels interesting to me. It's a slow sweet card. It only works on followers, but it takes control of them for a singular turn, which is not great obviously at 5 mana, but being able to play it at 2 mana like that, or maybe in like 1 mana, because you also have to keep in mind that most Seraphine decks also run like the back alley bar card, and so most of these cards might be playing for 1 mana, things like that. Like I think at 1 mana it's just okay to like maybe take something over, maybe take like a big faded unit and then you can override on board, just like kill it. So like pseudo removal, pseudo just pressure. Oh god. Very high up in the meh. I wish this could be better, but I think it's just meh. Next card, Withering Whale. This kind of removal I think is a little bit better than something like Concerted Strike, and I'll get to kind of those reasonings in a bit. Withering Whale, the classic, deal 1 to all enemies and heal your Nexus for 3. Doubling this up can be very, very good. Just a 2 mana AoE clear across the board. That's almost the same. That's pretty much the same thing as casting something like Hexite Crystal. That's not doubled, obviously. But the 2 mana deal across the board, especially in a region like PNZ that historically struggles to deal with pretty wide board states, I actually find this card to be pretty decent. Granted that there's not a lot of hits for this card. It's not really useful into the Vayne decks. Not really that useful in mirrors except for a bit of heal, but I think in the right spots this can be pretty decent, so I will put it here next to Harsh Winds. They're sort of like foils, right? Harsh Winds against the go tall decks, and then Withering Whale for the go wide decks. Next up, we have Grasp of the Undying. At 5 mana, this card sucks, but at 2 mana, deal 3 to heal 3. Like, this card becomes a lot better. And of course, if you can double up, it deals 6, which is pretty decent as far as some of these things go. I just don't think I think it's a little bit too situational. Like if you double it up, but the target you hit on only has 3 health or less than 3 health, or like it's deniable with like cards like Fervor, it is something you can miss out on. But it's again just decent. Probably slightly more conditional than cards like Harsh Winds and Whale, but overall just like kind of fine. Next up, we have a double up, deal 2 to an enemy. Sometimes if it kills, deal 4. It's okay. If you can get the deal 4, that can be pretty decent, just because like the Seraphine Ezreal deck, it is one that aims to burst down your opponents, so having a little bit extra reach is not bad. Not a lot of these cards can actually go face, which being a card that can go face gives you a little bit extra burn. Granted, it is a lot more conditional in doing so. This card seems okay. I'll put it in decent just because it can deal damage to the face, but otherwise if you're trying to use it as removal, there's just better options. Next up, Concerted Strike, and I'll talk briefly about Concerted Strike and some of the other cards that are just more strike related, because the Seraphine decks for the most part don't actually have very good units or units with very high attack powers to actually deal with Concerted Strike. So if you're targeting Seraphine or like Ezreal or like Barkeep, your units have like 2 to 3 attack. which makes Concerted Strike obviously lose a lot of value in that potential. Now, if you are playing with Victor, for example, then you have like a solid target for Concerted Strike, and this can be just absolutely backbreaking, just like healing 7 damage for the price of 2 mana. Depending on your deck, this can be decent to meh. Just because it's so much more conditional in what your deck requires or what units you have on board in order to enable the kind of thing. Obviously, when you double it up, then, you know, 2 times 4 is still 8. But this card's just like, okay. Where would I put it comparatively? It's probably better than double up, honestly. But still just so conditional that I'm just gonna put it next to there. Deep Med, oh boy, here we go. So there are a couple cards in this pool that also have the added bonus of being able to discount themselves. So the Fan Club President reduces the cost of Deep Med to 2, and then if you flow, it reduces the cost further to 0. So all of a sudden you have a 2 mana or 0 mana draw 2, and of course if you can double that up with Seraphine, you have a draw 4. And where your deck plays a lot of spells because you want to activate Seraphine, this can obviously just completely refill your hand, which makes that a very, very solid card. Go get it. This one is a little bit unique. In case you guys don't know what it does, it's a recall card. It recalls an ally to summon an ephemeral copy of that ally and then create a 0 cost copy of that card in hand. So you can use this on a card like Seraphine, for example. So it recalls Seraphine, summons in an ephemeral copy of Seraphine, gives you that new 2 mana spell because you summon Seraphine, and then you get another Seraphine in hand, which you can play out if you need to. So in a pinch, acts as a little bit of a protection card. You can get another copy of Seraphine spell if you need the removal for the turn. But I just don't think a lot of decks can make use out of it. Very niche. It's good to take to protect your Seraphine, which there's not actually that many cards that actually do that against like hard removal. There are a few. This is probably the better one of those. So I will give this a nice, decent rating. Moonlight Affliction, Silence 2, Nightfall, they can't block. Again, I don't think this gets a lot of value. Because again, you're not really pushing all that much damage on board for the most part. Silence 2 can be pretty good into some like elusive decks, but overall, actually, you know, it still targets 2 units for Ezreal. If you double that up, it targets 4 units. So it's potentially like a nice way to like burst level your Ezreal, but definitely very conditional whether or not you want to actually take this card, because I wouldn't take this card just to give my Ezreal 4 progress if there are better options. So this seems pretty decent. Definitely something that, you know, your opponent has to play around. Silence against faded units, definitely pretty solid. But again, your deck doesn't really have the units to kind of chump up into it, so I'll give this a... Where does this go? It's like meh. It's like high meh. Sunburst, here we go. 2 mana, deal 6, and Daybreak, silence it. That can just be completely game winning. Deal 6, as well as denying any sort of effects, last breaths, things like that, is super, super good. Into any deck practically. Kills Seraphines, kills Veins, kills Pantheons, kills big faded units, deals with the Harpy, deals with the Varus, deals with pretty much anything that you can ever think of, especially if you can pull off the Daybreak effect of this card. Even if you don't, but if you double it, you're just completely smiting a unit for 12 damage. Like, just a phenomenal card across the board. Definitely very, very solid, and probably one of the best cards you can ever look for. Never sad to see that card. All right, Blessing of Targon, 5 mana +3/+3. Grant, matter of fact, +3/+3. And then once that 2 mana, it becomes one of the best combat tricks in the game. Or rather, is the best combat trick in the game, right? Plus 2 mana for +6 stats across the board. And if you can double this, +12 stats, like this is very, very solid. I quite like hitting this off because it can also give you protection against Seraphine. You can use this to chump block and catch your opponent off guard. You can use it to protect your Seraphine against like challengers and into the decks where having that stats really matter. Having a 2 mana +6/+6 can just completely dominate the board. On all of a sudden you have the biggest unit on the board, and then even as a Seraphine deck, with only other small units, all of a sudden having one big unit, complete power spike, very good at ending the game. Star Shaping, 5 mana burst, the next burst speed heal card aside from Catalyst of Aeons. Catalyst being able to ramp, only healing 3, Star Shaping now healing 5, as well as being able to generate a Celestial. So definitely a good, decent alternate way of generating a win condition. And the heal can be pretty relevant. Obviously healing 10 if you're not playing specifically the Ionia version without the ability to tell Stone's health pot to heal 9. Obviously having ways of healing is pretty decent depending on the region as well as the deck, especially the Nox variant that really doesn't have any ways of healing. Having ability to heal and then generate a win con, that's pretty good. Is it better than Pursuit? I think it's better than Pursuit for a bit. Out of the way. Yeah, this card's useless. It's just a draw. Draw 1. Bad. Very bad. Granted, it has another effect where, you know, all your buffs persist, but I just don't know if that's ever going to be relevant. Maybe you get like a random crowd pleaser or something like that, and you can grant something +2 quick attack for the rest of the game. But that's a little bit too niche for me. I would like to skip if I could see that in my generation. Next up, we have Survival Skills. Survival Skills is, to me, Survival Skills is a fantastic card if you can utilize it. You don't really have many ways of discarding cards unless you're running specifically things like Rummage or things like that. And those generally aren't going to be very high priority. So you're never going to have the ability to burst this out. Being able to play it out is honestly not bad. If you have a decently wide board, you can just completely stop an attack because you're blocking pretty profitably across the board. But it's honestly not that great. Again, your units don't really block very well. So I probably wouldn't relegate this to skip. It's like close to the level of like Detain or Intimidating Roar to me. So I will put it in meh. Oh boy, Wild Claws. This is a one-way strike, so at least you have a one-way single combat. So it's basically like a fish fight, right? Except again, your units don't really strike for very much. Your unit's not gonna have overwhelm, and you're not really going to be able to abuse this very much. I would put this in skip. There's just like infinitely better ways of dealing 2 damage to your opponent's units, and there's really no payoff to this card. All right, next up we have Tri-Beam Improbulator, everybody's favorite PNZ card. The ability to scale, deal damage to a unit, and then summon a unit of your own is pretty good. Albeit, you probably don't actually have good ways of scaling it. If you get it to like 2 or 3, it's pretty okay, but you really don't get any immediate impact off of it. Like, if you need to play this as a deal 1, that's actually pretty bad. Obviously, if you can scale it, you know, good on you. You get a pretty decent power spike, especially if you can double it up. But I don't really see this card going above like 3-4, especially when you need to generate off a Fan Club President, which is coming down turn 4 and later. This card is pretty meh. It's potentially even more meh than some of these cards. I'll put it next to here. I think Detain's actually better than that card. Maybe Detain's like slightly better. Something like that. All right, next up, Entomb. 2 mana fast, obliterate unit, summon a Frozen Thrall in its place, and then count out. Or not Frozen Thrall, but Frozen Tomb. 2 mana, Entomb. Entomb is a solid card overall. A little bit niche, but being at fast speed, it basically acts as a pseudo like Concussive Palm, but it's even better because it removes the unit off the board for a turn. Maybe run like Hellstones, and then you can Aftershock it if you are so lucky to have a 2 mana combo. This card seems pretty decent. Just a single target removal for 2 turns. Definitely pretty solid. So I will put this up in decent. I don't know if the order here is like really all that all that important, but we can play around with that at the end if we have a very strong inkling. Okay, next up we have cold resistance, gain a mana gem and grant an ally +0/+2, I believe. It's okay. Like ramp is cool and all. Especially you can double it. But at certain point, ramp is just worthless and the buff is not the greatest. So this card is like pretty meh. If you can pull it off pretty early, ramp to like, say you play like, say you play Fan Club Press on 4 and then you ramp to 6 and you play bar, that's like pretty cool. But at a certain point, this card just loses a lot of value because you're at 10 mana or 9 mana, or you can just completely dump your hand without needing the extra mana gems, and the +0/+2 is just sort of irrelevant. So this card is probably at the bottom of meh. I just don't know. It obviously gains a lot more value the earlier you get it, but the later you get it, it loses a lot more value. Defiant Dance, we have a Will of Ionia for 2 mana at a slow speed, and then you get the additional Blade Dance 1. Now, Will of Ionia, just decent removal. It's pretty solid. You're not always going to be able to kill units that come down, given the fact that a lot of these cards actually deal damage, are damage-based removal cards. Defiant Dance offers you something that is able to sort of slow down your opponent, especially if you're recalling a 5 mana unit, a 6 mana unit. Like, I think the value of something like this is probably a lot better than something like Grasp, even if you can double it up and try to challenge something. Like just resetting the mana, slowing the game down is something that Seraphine really wants to do. So I think this is a nice, hilariously okay card. Right there. Next up, Shadows of the Past. I'm not even going to tell you what this card does. This card sucks. Lightning Strike. For the same reasons that I think Concerted Strike is pretty low, Siphoning Strike falls under a very similar umbrella. You're just not really having the ability to kill things very easily. And on top of that, this is a slow speed card. If you can level something, very cool. Or if you can kill something, very cool, but you're like maybe killing like a 2/2 just to kill your Seraphine, like +2/+2. Very, very meh. Better than cold resistance and intimidating roar and survival skills? Okay. Alright, next up, the time has come. Oh boy, this card, 5 mana, summon a Clockling. If you have predicted, summon 2 instead. Most Seraphine decks do run Time Trick as a way to like just draw through your deck, and you can double it up after you have leveled Seraphine. So being able to like, you should be able to double this up. And if I think burst blockers is always something that is relatively underrated. So being able to generate 2 blockers at burst speed for 2 mana is actually pretty decent. Now, if you have a Seraphine leveled, you can just spew 4 of these on a board, which I think is hilarious. So I actually think this card is like pretty decent. Where does it fall between some of these cards though? Like this card is decent for sure. Like I would be fine putting this in hilariously okay, even better than decent, just because I think that the ability to like just burst blockers is like really cool. But then like compared to Withering Whale is just better if you double it up. But if you don't double it up, then it's like pretty decent. Like this is solid. I'll give this a very solid effort. Spirit Journey, kill an ally and then summon it again, or kill a unit and then summon it, something like that, right? So this is definitely a little bit more flexible. You can use this as protection to your Seraphine. Resummoning it does give you that extra copy. You can use this as a pseudo like entomb. But you can entomb your own unit as well. So slightly better as a form of protection than entomb, but slightly worse as a form of removal. So I'll probably put it next in entomb then. Because it's just very, very decent. Withering Mist, drain 2 from 2 enemies. So being able to drain 2 for like this is very good at 2 mana, even if you aren't able to double this up. The ability to just double Mystic Shot for 2 mana, like very, very solid. You know, right next to decent. Probably better than Whale. Lordle Arms. I don't think I've ever seen this card if I'm being honest. And I don't know if you have the ability to activate it very easily. You can play bar to give you other regional cards, but again, your board state doesn't really matter all that much. So I would I would be inclined to just put this here. I've never seen this card getting pulled off of it, and I think for good reasons. Card just kind of sucks. The decks that can abuse this are these go wide swarmy decks, and you do need to activate as well, which I think you have a hard time doing with any sort of deck. Next up, Shell Game. Burst speed, grants an ally give an ally elusive for the round and refill your spell mana or something like that. So this actually gives you mana, right? So you play for 2 mana, you get 3 mana back. So you're actually upping on mana, and then you're getting like an elusive card. Just like having an ability to up mana, I think can be just very powerful. Which and again, if you play this for 1 mana or 0 mana, even depending on like the bar or victor, like you're just gaining mana for free for a turn, which I think automatically just makes that hilariously okay. It's on a paper level, on paper, it's not that strong. Because again, if you've listened to everything I've been saying, you know, giving something like a Seraphine elusive to deal 2 damage obviously isn't very strong. But I think the ability to like actually give yourself additional mana on a specific turn can actually be very decent. Next up, Event Horizon. Stun an enemy and then stun all enemies with 2 or less power. There's just better cards than this. Like we have Harsh Winds, we have Celestial Wonder coming up. And if you're just using it to stun 1, there's obviously just better choices. If you need it to like stun a wide board, you have like better choice as well. It's definitely okay in the right state if you just like stun 3 things somehow, just perfectly. You know, that's actually pretty decent, but very situational, and then better cards that you can hit off of it. But still, the ability of like having a just a random 2 mana stun at least is solid. It's better than Decisive Maneuver, but still just sort of meh. Heroic Charge. Slow speed ally strikes an enemy. If it survives, stun it. Not much to say here. Strike spells suck, like Siphoning Strike. Now, this is even worse than Siphoning Strike because stunning it at slow speed is sort of useless. I'm putting this in skip. I don't like this card. Is it worse than Wild Claws? No, it's better than Wild Claws. But it still sucks. Next up, Spirits Unleashed. Slow speed spell. Grant all of your allies +1/+1 and then deal 1 to everything. So just off the board, like Withering Wail, but instead of healing, gives all of your units +2/+2 and then deals 2 damage to the both nexuses, right? I think like that's just very solid overall. I think this is just better than Whale. Heal, I think, is a lot more situational than something like buffing your board. And your units are pretty small. Buffing them up +2/+2 is not really something that's like non-negligible. So I think this card is hilariously okay. I'll put this card right here. 9 lives. This summons a Liminal Guardian, which summons a 1-drop from your regions. The Liminal Guardian being a 3/2. So for 2 mana, you're summoning a 3/2 and a 1-drop. And when you can double it up, you know, that's pretty good. Like I want to put this card pretty high up because I think it's hilarious and it's okay, which is like what the category is actually here for. So like being able to burst out 4 units if you have leveled Seraphine makes it really hilariously okay. If you're only bursting out with 2 units, it's still okay. But for the haha factor, I actually quite like this card a lot. It's non-conditional unlike the time has come, so at least has some hilarious surprise factor. Next up, Battle Bonds. Again, I think a card like that just gives buffs, especially because these are grants, right? You're granting 2 allies +2/+2. That's even more stats than Blessing of Targon on paper. But going wide is conditionally worse or better than going tall. But imagine you have like 2 units that you want to protect, like Seraphine and Ezreal. Very solid card overall to generate. Celestial Wonder is stunning 2 things. Doubling up doesn't really matter, but stunning 2 and then like potentially progressing Ezreal by 4, very, very solid. It's already better than something like Event Horizon. It's like on par with things like Entomb, Spirit's Journey, Harsh Winds even. So like this card is pretty deserving, put out a very solid, decent. Coup de grace. Sorry, Coup de grace. I've been working on my pronunciation of this card. This card returns an opponent's follower into their deck and then it draws 1. This card physically can't double, but this card just sucks so badly that it's putting in the skip. I've never found a profitable way to play this card out. Never, ever, never. Most wanted. So slow speed card, target ally discards a card to draw 3. Now you can double this up on yourself to like draw 6, even like 2 mana draw 3. Like this card's actually pretty decent. I haven't seen this at all, but having a decent way to refill your hands, I would say is actually pretty cool. There's not actually that many cards that specifically say draw on these kind of cards. And discard 2 cards is a little bit of a downside, but overall actually pretty decent. Just because it has the word draw on it, I'm gonna put this on hilariously okay. Next up, Rocket Barrage. Deal 3 to 1 and deal 1 to all other enemy units. Like, this is pretty cool. Definitely very situational, on par with something like Withering Wail, but being able to deal 3 to unit, as well as dealing 1, and then if you double it up, like, I think it's just even more solid than something like Whale. So, very, very decent. Portal Palooza. This is interesting because it does draw, but it also shuffles portals, right? Now, this card can be very good because you can use this card both aggressively and defensively, but it has also an added ability where if you draw 2 and you're putting 8 portals into your deck, you have a pretty decent chance of hitting them just right off the bat. So, like, the chance of hitting like 2 portals, actually pretty decent. Granted, you don't have something like Nora to get that payoff, but draw 2 and then summon some blockers, like, that's just a very, very solid card. Yeah, that's okay. Cosmic Binding, deal 2 and then stun a unit, plant 6 chimes, something like that, into your deck. Chimes, not a lot of value, but if you can hit them on like a champion, that's pretty good. Stun 1 and then deal 2. It's like close to Celestial Wonder. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But like deal 4, potentially kill something and stun something. So off the bat, like right next to Celestial Wonder, chimes, added bonus, why not? Eye of Nagaboros. I don't think there's anything to argue there. Double it up, spawn 4, draw 4. Like, even 2 mana, spawn 2, draw 2. Something a burst blocker, drawing 2. Extra value, extra stuff. Very solid. Loaded Vessel. So this card deals 2 and then draws 1 fleeting card for every damage dealt. So you could draw like 4, you could draw 2. As far as the draw cards go, it's a little bit weaker. But it is also pseudo removal. This card's confusing to me. Heal 2, draw 2, fleeting. Fleeting cards is a little bit scary, just because most Seraphine decks do want to be quite reactive, and there are some cards that you kind of want to hold on to. Say it's something like Time Trick to hold on to so you can double its Seraphine. You don't want to be forced to play out certain cards because you might be wanting to save them to play them as new cards when Seraphine's on board. But it's okay. It's definitely a lot more situational. I'm not a huge fan of the card. Like, it's less for removal, right? Like deal 2, maybe deal 4. I think it's just definitely less removal. There's better draw cards and there's better removal cards, but in a certain moment, you need both a Mystic Shot and a draw 2. This card can be pretty okay. Blood in the Water, deal 1, and then Rally. I put Shumpo here, so I think it's only fair to put this next to it, because they're essentially the same card, except it deals slightly less, so I guess Shumpo is just slightly better. This can go face. Outer. Bellows Breath. Forge an ally. And then deal 1. I forgot what this card says. Hang on. What does this card do again? Bellows. Forge an ally, deal 1 to all units, and do it again. So right off the bat, it's worse Spirits Unleashed, unless you're forging. But if it's worse Spirits Unleashed, but I put Spirits Unleashed pretty high up. This only being able to target 1, and then is it to all units, and then sometimes you're killing your own stuff and it doesn't hit face. So situationally, this is a lot worse than Spirits Unleashed. the downside of killing your own board, I think, is quite high. Granted that sometimes you just don't have a board, but I don't think this card is that great. How low does it go though? It's like Avalanche, right? It's just Avalanche. It's pretty much just Avalanche. All right, I'll put it here. Gifts of the Hearthblood, a heal 4, draw a unit, and then give all of your units in your deck +1/+1 or something like that. Doubling it, you get a draw 2. So at the very least, it's a heal 4, draw 1, which is honestly pretty good. And then it buffs all the other cards. Given your relatively low unit density, being able to draw a unit like Fan Club President, like one of your champions, it's actually pretty close to being a decent tutor. The heal can be relevant, the buff can be okay. This card is pretty solid, I would say. Even like hilariously okay. Like I'm giving a lot of value to the ability to draw cards. Especially like it's like better than shaping then. It's like drawing units from your own deck should just be better, right? Especially if you can draw Seraphine or Ezreal. Like this card should be really, really solid. Maybe even goes up here. Yeah, it's not bad. All right, next up, Dragon Ambush. Start a free attack with 2 Dragonlings. As far as heal cards go, definitely a little bit worse. It can actually apply a decent amount of pressure if you double it up. You're summoning 4 Dragonlings attacking, again, as a more aggressive variant of Seraphine like Ezreal that want to burst down your opponent. This card can actually be pretty decent. It's pretty solid. I don't think it's like super good. Compared to the heal cards like Whale, honestly it's probably worse than Whale. Like, let's be honest, it's just worse than Whale, right? So put it like here. Probably better than Time Has Come, even though this is burst blockers. But Unworthy Soul, we got the newest card, the Will of Ionia. Flow, it costs 3 or 2 less, right? So you're getting it for 2, and then you can potentially discount it to 0 mana. And 0 mana will, like, that's just very solid. When you're playing cards with 0 mana that say like recall a unit, and it can also destroy equipments as well and attachments, like sheesh. Ice on the cake. Storm the Blades, get out of here. All right, last 2 cards. Drum Solo, draw 2, discount the cost of the cards by 2. So you can get this for 2, and then you can double its Seraphine, and then you can draw 4, discount all your cards by 2. This might also just be up there in the game winning, because you can just specifically say it's your Seraphine, draw 2 for 2, and double it up, and then discount all of them by 2 again. Like, that can just be completely game winning on itself, completely allowing you to dump out your hand, maybe set up for Ezreal kill combo. Fantastic card. And then lastly, we have Heedless Resurrection, which allows you to revive the strongest champion that has died, and you can double it. I have games where I have been able to double Ezreal twice. You can double Seraphine twice, and then that can be very good as well. And again, this is the card that can get its cost reduced once you've equipped. So this card can cost 0. So for the last card, I will put this on game winning, just because this can bring back specifically your champions, which is what Seraphine decks really want. It can cost 0. You can double it up to be at like triple Seraphine on board, or double, triple Ezreal on board, and that can just win you the game by itself. It is a little bit dead card if you don't have a champion dead, but overall I think it has such high potential that I'm going to rate it pretty highly. So let's take a final look and see if we want to change a couple things around, maybe some like inconsistencies in reasoning and logics. Pretty happy with very solid. I could probably just like collapse these 2 tiers together, just because I think the power level difference between these is just relatively, you know, like not very much, but it'll do for now. I rated 9 Lives very highly, as well as Shell Game. I just think they're hilarious, which is half the reason why Hilariously Okay exists. This category is like pseudo, like it's like pseudo actual ranking. It's just there to be funny for half the time. You get it and you get a chuckle out of it. Decent's actually just where most of your removal is at. You know, like the most of the Shadow Owls cards, the freeze, the stall cards, some of the heal cards, and a few of the removal cards. Meh, is just removal but worse. And then yeah, I'm pretty happy with this overall. This is the list of all the cards you can get from Biggest Fan, and then hopefully that this gives you a little bit more glimpse into what your opponent can be having in their hand. So yeah, there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this little segment. I don't know if this was interesting or not, but who knows? You should let me know though, so I can know in the future, and maybe I can never do this again if you guys are just drop dead bored. But anyways, that's gonna be that. One last thing before we do end off, I guess this is your let's exit that. Well, let's play the Lordle, huh? So if you guys don't know, the Lordle is a free website created by I'll figure out who created it and I'll link it down, but it's pretty fun. I didn't stream today, so we're gonna do the Lordle together. So I always guess Yasuo, and then as you can see, it'll give you it'll tell you what the card you're looking for is, and you have to go off of the clues. So the card for today is a unit. It's less than 4 mana. It's not a champion. It's not an Ionia, and it's not in Foundations. So let's say it's a 2 mana Noxus card or 2 mana Bilgewater card from Rising Tides. So let's say it's like Dreadway Deckhand, right? Oh my god, I thought I got it. So it's a Bilgewater common that's less than 1 mana. It's a unit, but it's not from Rising Tides. I don't think it's Watchful Idol again, but I know it's 1 mana. It's not a champion, and it is a common. It can't be Watchful Idol again, right? Just because I know that in the past we already had Watchful Idol. Is Watchful Idol a common? Watchful Idol. Oh, it is. Oh, no. Oh, it's the wrong set. Oh, you really got me. Okay. 1 mana Bilgewater card. 1 mana Bilgewater card. It's not Rising Tides. It's not World Waker. What are the 1 mana Bilgewater cards that are units? I can't think. Brain work. Brain. Come on. 1 mana Bilgewater card. My brain's not working. One mana Bilgewater unit. Or follower rather. And it's a common. Didn't come from World Waker. Didn't come from Rising Tide. I'm blanking. Oh, it could be a lurk unit. Let's try lurk unit. It'd be like Xersai Hatchling. Wait, I'm stupid. I meant the other card. I meant the I meant the Bilgewater one. Okay, but it's not Empire, so it's not a lurk card. But I meant the 1/2. The 1/2, right? Is the 1/2 Bilgewater? The 1/2 is the 1/2 is definitely Bilgewater, right? I'm not going crazy. But what does that leave it? It's not Empires of Ascended. It's not World Waker. It could be Targon. Or it could be the most recent expansion. But I don't think the most recent expansion gave Bilgewater a one drop. Brain, why are you not working on me? What happened in Targon? What did the Targon set give? It had to give something, but I just can't think of it. I can't think of it. Oh, please, like I don't know. It could be Targon. It could be Darkin. Did the Darkins get any? Oh, the Darkins did get something. The Brew, Sentinel. No, wait, that's not it. The Brew, what's it? The Brew Lookout? No, what's it called? Wait, I saw the new. I swear the new set got the brew card. I'm not going crazy. Now this is embarrassing. Brew, maybe it's just like not updated, but like brew cultist, right? So it's not updated with the new set, but that's fine. Well, now I'm just cheating. Okay, I can't figure it out for the life of me. Common, 1 mana card. Oh, like Crusty Codger. It's probably Crusty Codger. That came out in Targon with Tom Kench and Starspring. There we go. Ah, okay. I knew it was called a mountain at some point, but I just couldn't really figure it out. All right, well, there you go. Here's the Lordle as well, so go check that out. Thank you guys for tuning into the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me guys know if this is enjoyable. I don't know. It's just a kind of random idea that came to me, but appreciate sticking around. I'll see you guys later. Peace out, guys. Take care.